Throughout our lifetime, we will come across thousands of opinions.
To make something great.
Thousands of different life advice that a lot of times contradict each other. Yes, there is life advice that I think works generally well for a lot of people, but there are always exceptions to rules. And I think what I've seen personally in my life is there's a lot of advice, a lot of rules, quote unquote, that I was the exception to. And I think a lot of people are the exception to. And I think a lot of people would actually benefit from not following this common life advice. It doesn't mean that the life advice within itself is wrong. It just means that as the world is changing and adapting, that you can do things differently. And the act of actually doing things differently might give you a better result than you even expected. I personally found numerous benefits from questioning the status quo, from questioning ideas that people consider to be normal or right, chose to live life differently, and it ended up being, I think, the key to my success. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about 5 common life advice that I've heard over and over and over again that I actually didn't follow and found a ton of benefits from not doing so. And I'll explain why, and also just in general, why sometimes common advice doesn't work for everyone. If you're new to this channel, welcome. And if you are a returning subscriber, I wanna thank you for coming back to this channel. I actually, despite making these videos, do not have a desire to be like an influencer, you know? Like that's not who I am, and that causes me to sometimes like hold back on posting all the time because it never feels the most authentic. But I got a video for you, so appreciate you watching, and if you're new here, consider subscribing for more content like this. The first piece of common advice I disagree with is ego is the enemy. This concept is very popular, especially with one of the best-selling books by Ryan Holiday, known as Ego is the Enemy. And I actually love this book. I agree with it most of the time, and I think that if you're not careful, yes, ego can 100% be the enemy. But I actually know people personally to me that do not have this problem. They have almost zero ego. There is a form of healthy ego, and if you don't have it and you're hearing advice like ego is the enemy, I think that could actually do more harm than good. The definition of ego within itself is not a bad thing. It just means sense of self. I think there are plenty of people who could benefit from a healthy ego, and I would even go as far to say as there are people that have zero ego, zero confidence, a zero sense of self, that would actually even benefit from a toxic level of becoming egotistical and figuring out how to bring it back down to a healthy level. Just a thought. Number 2 is go to college. I think that going to college within itself is not a bad thing, and I think any form of education will be somewhat beneficial to you in some shape or form. And people I know that didn't use their degrees or went to college and maybe said, I shouldn't have done it, they still do find value from it. And I think there's actually a lot of people on this earth that need college, that like if they didn't go to college or if they chose to not, it would actually be a bad idea for them because they do need it and they would benefit from it. Most people, when they think of cost, they think of physical cost, but there's other costs like opportunity, time, mental capacity, etc., that you spend when you go to college. It's 4 years of your life, plus tons of student loans, plus surrounding yourself with people that sometimes aren't the best. And yeah, you might have an amazing experience. College for some people is this amazing peak experience in their life that they, look back on and find tons of value in, sure, right? But at the same time, there's a lot you can do in 4 years, a lot. And what I chose to do instead of going to college, for my life personally, at least in the moment, it was very beneficial. And I would argue that I wouldn't be here talking to you if I did go to college. It just wouldn't, I don't think so. Maybe it would have turned out better for me, who knows? It's hard to say, but I was able to take that time, the opportunity of time, and plus take some money and invest it into myself. I still read, I still learn. I'm never gonna stop learning. But I was able to invest that time and money into myself and build something that had, I think, a way bigger return on investment. Number 3, start saving for retirement as early as possible. First of all, I'm not against saving for retirement. I'm not against retirements in general. I think that we should do that. However, I think number 1, there's different ways to save for retirement. There's different ways to invest money and get it back than just traditional retirement funds. And then also the most important retirement thing you can do, the best way to set yourself up for success is health. A lot of people neglect their health yet they save tons of money for retirement. There's an actuarial study conducted on some of the larger US pension funds that indicates employees who retired at the age of 65 within 2 years of retirement died. And there's a lot of reasons for the death very close to retirement problem that people run into. But in general, it is interesting, right? To be working towards something and then dying as soon as you hit it, that's kind of strange. And I think there's a lot of problems we have around this. And then on the topic of saving money as early as possible for retirement, I think is bad advice. I personally chose not to when I was really young, and I chose to invest into things like, knowledge or my camera gear or other things. Waited a couple of years and then started to invest into retirement funds. And I've calculated the returns that I would have had if I would have taken that money and put it into a retirement fund versus if I would have put it into investments like of knowledge or camera gear or courses or any sort of things that I was working on. And I found this to be very interesting because if I would have taken the advice of start saving as early as possible, I would have been losing money that I could have been using in other areas that would have had way more return. Not only for the short term, but also on a long-term retirement investment. The only thing you have in this world that's finite, that you don't have abundance of or abundance potential ability of, is time. So therefore, that's the most valuable thing in this world. And we exchange our time for money, getting money, and that can then lead to spending less time on other things, which in the end leads to potentially a wasted life. And in my opinion, I think that if you die with a ton of money, and that's kind of the idea behind die with zero, you're in a nutshell wasting your life that you could have been, using or spending otherwise. Number 4, don't move out, stay home and save up money. I chose to do the exact opposite of this. I actually moved out before legally maybe I was allowed to. I was 17 years old. And it wasn't because I was like, some bad kid and like hated my parents. I was just ready to become an adult. And actually moving out made me an adult. It made me really kind of push myself to become an adult pretty early on in my life. There's Gary V's of the world that talk about, who cares about impressing people and having a nice apartment when you could be saving money and working hard and making money and not wasting it on rentals or mortgages or etc. And I think this is great advice. I do, but there are some people who are stuck. There are some people who are living at their parents' house and completely stuck, and they're not able to grow up, I believe, because they're stuck in these same patterns and they don't have to push themselves very hard because they know, well, my rent's I don't have to pay rent, or it's very little, or whatever the case is. Now, if life's going great for you and you're happy and you're crushing it and you're trying to just save money, live with your parents, that's great. Keep doing that. But if the opposite is true, where things are not working out, you could improve, things are not the best. That's what I would argue is like, hey, maybe you need to push yourself. Maybe you need to get out. Maybe you need to view life and experience life from a lens where you're going all in. I like this idea of like 2 feet in, and you'll even hear about people doing this with things like YouTube or their business or whatever, where they quit their job. Jeff Bezos did this with Amazon, right? They quit their job and then they go all in on something, right? And it's like the pressure, but sometimes this creates, a pressure creates a diamond, right? It's kind of very beneficial to kind of put yourself in these uncomfortable situations that force you to become the person that you're destined to become. Number 5, good things come to those who wait. I believe this to a certain degree. I have a quote that I say that the world favors those who are patient, meaning that a lot of times if you are patient and you don't force things, especially on the topic we just talked about, if you're in a position in life where you're just not the most happy, be patient. It's gonna come, your time's coming. Don't feel rushed. Sometimes you hear these kids who are just crushing when they're super young. It's like, once again, the world favors those who are patient, but there are times to be patient and there are times to take action. And that's a great example of what we were talking about before this, right? Where there are times when, be patient. Don't move out of your parents' house if things are going really well for you and it's working. But there's also the time when you need to not be patient and you need to take action. So if there's anything you can take from this video, it's that 1, you should be open-minded, but also 2, that you shouldn't hold on to some of these advices that people give you just because they've worked for some people. Because I think that while yes, they can work a lot of times for most people, there are times when it may not apply to other people. And having the discernment to be able to identify what does or doesn't work and trying things out and realizing, oh, this didn't work for me, so I'm gonna try this, or whatever the case is, can be of huge benefit to you. And maybe the problem of where some people are at in life is because they've been following the traditional advice, right? Because they've been following this common advice that everyone's always told them they should do. And sometimes what gives them the most results in life is when they step out of that and they go, wait, what if this is wrong? What if there's a different way to do this? Thanks for watching.